In this episode of the Significant Coaching Podcast, I had the great pleasure of sitting down with Coach Jarren Dyson, assistant men's basketball coach at Army. I spent most of our conversation so impressed with his wisdom and demeanor and humility. I also love the way he sees the game of basketball. We point guards are all kindred spirits, that's for sure. If I was a D1 athletic director right now, Coach Dyson would be on my short list to call if my head basketball position to open up at my school. I think that highly of this young coach. I have a feeling it won't be long before somebody swoops in and steals him from West Point. We had a great conversation about the real value of attending and competing for a military academy and the Army's rich history, including where both Coach Bobby Knight and Coach K cut their teeth as young coaches. I wanted Coach Dyson on the podcast to quell misperceptions about attending a school like Army, and I walked away wishing I could enroll now and do it all over again. If you have a student athlete considering one of the military academies, this will be well worth the listen. If you're enjoying these conversations, I encourage you to subscribe on your platform of choice and leave me a comment with your thoughts and questions. You can always learn more and schedule with me at CoachMattRogers.com when you want more information. All right, let's get to it. Here's my conversation with Coach Jarren Dyson. How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. So glad to talk to you. I've heard so many great things about you.
Awesome. That's awesome. I appreciate it. I'm really lucky to do this.
Well, I did it for a long time, man. And not only am I happy for you that you're continuing to do it, but so cool that you're doing it at West Point.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. West Point's it's a special place, and I'm very lucky to work with the student athletes that I get a chance to coach.
It just must be remarkable to be around such remarkable young men every day.
Every day, every day. I mean, it's definitely been different than anywhere I've coached, but it's been remarkable to just see the things that these guys go through on a daily basis and to see the attitudes that they come with every day to practice. It's phenomenal.
Where were you before West Point?
So I coached at Christopher Newport
That's right.
University. I was there for 4 years under John Krikorian. Then I left and went to Lafayette College in the Patriot League. I was there for 5 years with Fran O'Hanlon. Then he retired. Then I went back to Christopher Newport, I want to say 2 years ago, with Coach Krikorian. And then this is going on year 2 here at West Point.
That's great, man. Those are some really fabulous guys to work for and to learn from. I wish I would have had that. You know, I felt lucky at 26. I was a head college coach at the D3 level at 26, but there were just so many things that I had to figure out. Nobody had taught me, you know. So I wish I would have had your experiences going into that first job, because it took me 3 years just to kind of figure out how to tie my shoes the right way, let alone recruit and lead and develop a program and things like that. So that's really cool. And I'm sure you've got big aspirations. You want to lead your own program at some point.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I definitely want to be a head coach. There's been a couple opportunities that I could have pursued, but for me, it's always been about, the right opportunity.
That's right.
You get one chance at being a head coach, and I want to make sure it's the right opportunity, not just for me, but for my family and a place where I think I could be successful. So, but right now I'm loving being an assistant here at West Point.
Where were you 25 years ago when I needed that advice?
I got lucky. I got lucky getting some advice from especially Coach O'Hanlon. He's the one that's kind of always told me,
yeah.
Be where your feet are. So that's what I've tried to do.
Absolutely. And I tell kids this every day. The one thing I took for granted when I was a player is I forgot how blessed I was to have that jersey on and be surrounded by my brothers and have the opportunity to play that game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And coaching's the same way. If you're not feeling blessed that you get to coach young men or young women and lead and and get to play that sport for a living, you're missing something. So happy to hear that's the path you're on too.
Yes, sir. So far it's been great, and I couldn't imagine doing anything else.
That's great. Now, listen, I wanted to have you on. I have so many kids that are looking at one of the military academies, and it's so unique in every aspect. If you've never been to West Point, if you've never been to the Air Force Academy, if you've never been to Annapolis, I don't think you understand the magnitude of what's being asked of these 18, 19-year-olds, right?
Yes, I agree.
And I want to get into that. But before, I want you to kind of talk about first the individual. What are some of those unique qualities you're looking for when you're evaluating a young man for West Point that maybe wasn't even an option at Lafayette or Christopher Newport? What are some of those things that you just have to have before you'll start talking to a kid?
Definitely. I would say, the number one thing for me at a place like this is their character. I want to know the type of person they are, the type of family they come from. And then I would also say, how unselfish are they? Because when you come to a place like this, it's not about you. It's about the institution. It's about the people that you're going to be in battle with. It's your teammates. Everything else matters, not just yourself. So I think for me, I really try to do a good job of weeding out the guys that maybe they're just not the right fit here. They
Yeah.
might be the right fit at some other schools. But for a place like this, I really want people that are unselfish and that have great character, that understand that they're going to be a part of something that's bigger than themselves. And that does take some time. That takes a lot of questions. That takes talking to teachers and guidance counselors and former coaches that they had when they were, in middle school. You kind of want to know everything about a person before you can present them, not only to our head coach, but to everybody here, because this is an important place and you want to make sure you have the right people here at West Point.
Amen, coach. And don't you wish that we didn't need the military academy for that to be the pinnacle of what we're looking for? You know what I mean?
I think you hit it right on the head. I would say since I came here, the things that I look for now are things, regardless if I'm here or wherever else I end up coaching one day,
Yeah.
I will not forget those lessons of the character and the unselfishness, the things that I learned at West Point. It's going to help me so much when I'm evaluating in the future.
And I've been in these gyms for 27 years that you're in all summer long. I've been sitting there with Bill Self and Rick Pitino. I've been sitting there watching these guys play, and you said that you got really good at weeding kids out. I'm still amazed at how often kids weed themselves out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. I don't think at that age that kids all understand that. They don't
Yeah.
understand that how you do anything is how you do everything. So when
Thank you.
you're playing an AAU game and you're yelling at a teammate, or the coach is talking to you, you're not paying them any attention, or you're rolling your eyes, like we're looking at all those things. And these are things that I wish I would have known when I was 18 or 19. Probably would have helped me out a little bit, but you just have no clue how important those things are. And like you said, you can easily cross kids off the list by some of the little things that they do that they have no idea can cost them an opportunity.
Let's turn the leaf on that. Let's look at the positive side of that same conversation. Are there things when you're sitting in that gym, and for those parents that are listening to this, I have a lot of parents that listen to this. We're sitting in a gym and we're looking around, and there's might be 80 courts. There might be 2,000 young men playing. You haven't gone to that gym with a blank sheet of paper. You know who you're going to see, where they're playing. You've probably already had conversations with them and their coaches. You've already watched their film. When you're sitting there, maybe you're watching a guy that you really love, but you're sitting there and another kid catches your eye. What are some of those things where you're like, hold on, what's going on here? What are some of those things that really get you excited about recruiting a kid?
For me, I would say competitiveness. I love kids that hate to lose. Like I love kids that it means a lot to them. An 8 a.m. AAU game means as much to them as a state championship game. So
Right
for
on.
me,
Yeah.
competitiveness is like a non-negotiable for me. Like I'm always going to recruit the most competitive kids that I can because I think that's a skill that it's really hard to teach somebody how to be competitive. Uh,
Right.
so for me, that's one. And then obviously, I would say toughness. I'm really big into those guys that take charges. They fight through screens. They don't get screened. That's always my other thing. Just don't get screened. They take and make those big shots at the end of the game. They're not scared to put the team on their back. Like I'm really big into that. And mental toughness as well. Everybody thinks toughness is just physical, being big and strong, but how are you acting when things don't go your way?
That's right.
That can tell you a lot about a player when they're 0 for 6, but how are they acting on the bench? How are they still engaged? Are they still shooting the next shot like the next one's good? How is their confidence? So those things that are some of the things that I really try to focus on when I'm out recruiting and get me excited.
That's awesome. And basketball is so different from every other sport because those mental things are so transparent. Football, they got a helmet on. You know, they might not be 30 yards near an official to yell at or get frustrated with. And we can't really see what's going on. Volleyball, the refs are at the corners, and baseball, we have an umpire. But basketball, it's every second, every moment we're watching these kids and evaluating how they're dealing with every situation. And we know they're going to fail. We know they're going to have some flaws, but it's so evident where that kid is at that day. And you might only get to see that kid one time, right?
Yes, yeah. Sometimes, I mean, the way the schedule is with recruiting, sometimes you might only get one opportunity to see a kid, and it might be for a half.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to watch so many kids, you're trying to see as much as you can in such a limited time that impression that kid makes in a half could make or break the situation. So, for me, I tell kids all the time, you're always being evaluated. So you never know when somebody's in the gym. You never know when somebody has a friend that's in the gym, or I've had, buddies that I've coached with that'll tell me about a kid. They'll say, "Hey, JD, I think this kid fits, what you're looking for." So I tell kids all the time, you just never know who's watching. So you always want to bring your A game and have the right attitude because it can change your life.
It's so funny you talk that way. I interviewed Mike Jarvis. I'm sure Coach Jarvis and his great history. He's a great mentor of mine, and we were talking about that same idea from a parent perspective. And I just asked him how he evaluated parents. And he goes, "The apple doesn't fall far from the tree," you know. And I lost it because it's so true. Typically who that kid is, you meet the parents, and there's a lot of similarities. Do you find that to be true?
I would say so, to be honest. I think I do a pretty good job also of trying to evaluate the parents when I'm at games. You can generally tell whose kid that parent is by how they're acting. They're living and dying by every shot, or if the coach takes them out, they're mad or upset.
Right.
So I like to scan the crowd a lot just to kind of see like, okay, who's this kid's parents, and I can generally figure it out
Yeah.
pretty fast. And I watch them sometimes. Sometimes once I know the kid's good enough, I'll
Yeah.
just watch the parents for
Yep.
a couple minutes and write it down in my notes because I know, my head coach is going to ask. He asks us a lot of great questions. He's going to want to know about the parents, so I better
Yeah.
be sure to give him a good answer. So
Yeah. There's such a fine line. I love a passionate parent,
definitely.
but is where is that passion being directed? Are you clapping like crazy? Are you supporting all the kids on the floor? Are you getting just excited about a teammate makes a great shot as your son? So I love that. Let's talk about Coach Kewick a little bit. Am I saying it right? It's Kewick, right?
Yes, sir.
Tell me some of the things that when Kevin's sending you guys out on the road, are there things I remember I always used to tell my guys, find me a junkyard dog. just go find me that kid that'll get every rebound for us, that'll defend like a wild man. Going back to your mental and physical toughness and that consistency. Are there things like that coach says, hey, we need this on our roster? We need a true whatever.
Yeah, definitely. And I think some of that is just the more time you get to work with your head coach, you start to learn a little more about what he likes. And I think that does take time as an assistant. It's not about the type of kids that I just want. It's about the type of kids that not only fit our program, but fit our head coach.
Right.
And I would say for Coach Kuick, a couple of things that stand out is he's really big in the skill. Like he's a big, like you got to be able to make shots. And that's always a question that he'll ask. He'll watch guys in warmups and evaluate their form, their technique, their consistency. He's really big in the skill and shooting like that. That's something that has kind of stood out to me. And then the other thing is he is fighting for size. He always says, can we get that guy that's maybe 2 or 3 inches taller? Because he loves to have guys that have size and are versatile, that can switch on defense. And that's been something that's been good for me. Obviously, me being a shorter point guard when I played.
Yeah, me too.
I love those quick, fast, tough guards. And he'll always say, JD, can you fight for a little more size? I know you want to get the next Jarren Dyson, but can you get me a little more size? So
that's right.
I think it's been great for me, honestly. I enjoy trying to do things differently than I have in the past.
That was one of the big things that I had to overcome. I always wanted to recruit a mirror version of myself because that's how I played. I played with my hair on fire. I wanted to guard the best player on the floor. I wanted the ball in my hands all the time. I wanted to be able to put the ball in our shooters' hands, get the ball in the post. So it was something I had to really learn to overcome. So it's great. It's great to hear that you're having those thoughts about, okay, how do I challenge myself here in what we need compared to what I think we need, right?
And I think it's tough for any young assistant because when you get into this profession, recruiting is a big part of it, and you are judged a lot of the time with the type of players you bring in. So a lot of, assistants, they just want to bring in the best player they can. And even though it might not be the right fit for the school or your head coach. So I think that is something that has taken some time. And I think I've gotten better at it is recruiting what's better for the program, but also what's good for the particular boss that I'm working for. What Coach Krikorian wanted at Christopher Newport was different than what Fran O'Hanlon wanted at Lafayette, which is different than what Coach Kuick wants here at Army. So absolutely. I think figuring out my head coaches and asking those tough questions and, having some of the kids that I liked initially get shut down, but having to go find more, I think has made me a better coach.
That's fantastic. Yeah. And I can see how that would make you have to adapt in a really good way. Let's talk about recruiting smarter, because you can't go after just any 6'4" point guard and 6'10" center. You don't have that freedom and flexibility that you might have had at CN or Lafayette. Talk me through where you guys have to get creative, maybe with your game planning, your strategies, where maybe you don't have that McDonald's All-American who's 6'9" that can play on the wing and, you can just isolate. So walk me a little bit through how you build that program at Army with that understanding. We're going to fight for that 6'9" wing, but if we don't get him, we've got to be ready to compete with Duke and Indiana and St. John's. What kind of conversation is going into building that roster?
I think the one thing we do is a pretty good job of is we have to do our homework early. So we have to get on the phone and have conversations with as many coaches and scouts and people all over the country. We don't just recruit the East Coast, we recruit nationally. So I think for us, it's one about just trying to make as many connections and have these conversations and hear about as many kids as possible, so that when we go out, we as a staff, we feel pretty good when we get back together on those Monday morning recruiting meetings that we've seen a lot of kids, and then we can kind of dwindle it down more about, look into their character, look into their transcripts. And then we have to just figure out which kids are the right fit for Army.
Right.
There are some talented kids that we've recruited initially that we stopped recruiting because they just weren't the right fit here.
Yeah.
And it's hard, there's some guys, like you said, there's some 6'4" point guards that, we would have loved to have, but, after we did some research and we talked to some people and, we just kind of decided let's go in a different direction. And you end up finding a 6'2" guy, 6'1" point guard that maybe he's not as big, but he's tough. He's an unselfish guy. You talk to him about the military aspect and he's excited about it. He's not one of those kids that's just like, no, I'm too good for that. So once you kind of dig in and really do your homework as a staff, I think it has made it a little easier for us, especially going on year 2. I think year 1, everywhere you go, you're all just trying to figure it out and you don't know each other that well. You're trying to learn your head coach. But I think as year 2 is going on, I think we've really done a better job of recruiting a lot of kids, seeing as many kids as possible, and then having those conversations with as many people around these kids to find if they're the right fit to help us with our ultimate goal, which is to win a Patriot League championship.
Absolutely. We're in this world now, Coach, where especially your world that you live in is so transactional now. What can you do for me, Coach? How much NIL money? How much can you guarantee me? You guys can't, you don't live in that world. You can't afford to even be in that world. What are the things that attract a young man to Army? Are the things that when you bring it up and you see their eyes light up, that you've got a shot at that kid? What are some of those attractions to West Point that gets kids excited?
Yes, I would say, some of the things is one, the education. I mean, Army is one of the top educations in the world.
That's right.
A lot of kids initially, when they hear about that, I mean, they're intrigued because at the end of the day, most kids and most families, they want to get a great education. And then I would say the alumni. There's been some phenomenal people that have graduated from West Point, from former presidents to, Mark Klaus. He's the CEO of Campbell Soup. He actually comes and speaks with our team every year. He's a former West Point basketball player. So to be able to kind of talk to them about guys like that, and obviously Coach K, the greatest coach of all time.
Pretty good career.
Yeah, pretty good career. To be able to talk to them about these guys were just like you. They were 18 years old, didn't know what they wanted, and they came to a place like this, and it changed their life. And Coach K has said that on numerous interviews that he wouldn't be the coach that he is today if he doesn't go to West Point. So those things with the education, the alumni, and then I would also say once we get them on the campus, it's really beautiful up here. Yeah. I mean, they see how beautiful it is up here, and then the people that they meet on this campus, like they're all here to help you. They see that our student athletes are just like them. They're just like they were, their kids. And then let them see like, yo, I can do this. I can see myself doing this and obviously serving your country. So I think for me, it's just, you try to hit them with a little bit of everything. You don't try to just, tone on one thing. I try to give them a little bit of everything. And generally, once you do that, the interest starts to peak. And especially when they want to come visit, it really helps sell this place.
Well, I love it that you guys are able to connect the dots for a 17-year-old who's just thinking about ball and school and what's next, what's tomorrow. And you can help open their eyes to what the next 4 years are going to do for the next 40 years if you graduate from West Point, and what that does for your life. The fact that if you want it, you got a job that's going to take care of you financially for the rest of your life. And you're going to have a support group and a family that's there for you every step of the way for as long as you want it. I mean, a lot of colleges can promise great alumni and four-year education, but very few can pretty much guarantee if you're going to be a hardworking, disciplined person, we're going to take care of you for the rest of your life.
And I tell kids that all the time. Like, if you're looking to come to a place just for 4 years and have some fun. Like, obviously West Point's not for you, but if you're looking to go a place that's going to take care of you for the rest of your life, and you're going to be a part of something that you're going to remember, and it's going to have impact, not just on you, but on your kids,
Yeah.
then I think West Point is the place for you. Now, it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
And that's the number one thing that I always tell these kids when we're recruiting them is, listen, this place, it is going to be hard. You're going to have some days where you're going to be like, what did I get myself into?
Right.
But I can promise you're not going to go in it alone. You're going to have all your brothers on their basketball team. You're going to have other cadets here that are kind of going through the same thing you are. And the resources and the help that is here at West Point to help you get through is amazing. It's as good as you're going to find anywhere in the country. And
Right.
I can promise you, once you graduate from West Point, you will not regret what you did those 4 years. You're going to be excited because the rest of your life is set.
Yeah. And what I try to preach to kids, you tell me if this is wrong. Yes, it's a 9-year commitment for you guys, right? They're basically there for 4 years, then it's 5 years of service, right?
5, yep.
So at worst, you're 27 years old. You've got this unbelievable education. You've got this unbelievable 5 years of professional service. And if you want to walk away at 27, you're still in the prime of your life. If you want to go be an engineer or go in the National Guard or go be a doctor, you can do whatever you want. So as much as that 9-year commitment is overwhelming, I think when you first think of it, the idea that I'm still going to be in the prime of my life, and if I want to do something different, if I change my mind, or if I want to go a different path down the road, I can do that. That's pretty sweet, I think.
And I always tell kids, West Point doesn't stop you from doing anything that you want to do.
That's
it
right.
Always helps you and enhances it. Coach K, it didn't stop him from becoming the greatest coach of all time. It hasn't stopped Mark Klaus from being the CEO. Everything that they've learned here has only helped to make them even better.
That's right.
And I think it just gives you an advantage, to be honest with you. I think at 22 years old, once you graduate here, as a second lieutenant, you're going to be in charge of people. Where else in the country are you going to get that type of leadership experience at 22, 23 years old? There's nowhere.
Nowhere.
So
yeah.
When you do get out at 27, if you decide to get out, people are going to want to hire you because you've already have leadership experience that most people don't get to their 35, 40 years old. So for me, I think it's just a no-brainer. I get it's not for everybody, but I can promise you it can change your life.
I wish somebody would have grabbed me by the back of the neck and drugged me to West Point at 17 and just said, stop thinking and just listen and watch. And just give me, I wish somebody would have just opened up, because I needed that discipline. I was a hardworking kid. I had a big work ethic. I was a good student. But I think I needed that more at that point in my life than I can imagine. So
I think we all did.
Yeah.
I think we all did. And I think when we were all at that age, all we were thinking about, I know I was basketball. All I thought about was basketball. I wasn't thinking about, the ball is going to stop one day. What else do I want to do? What's going to help me? All I was thinking about is, when am I going to get my next workout in?
That's right.
Thinking about practice. So again, at that age, it's important to have the right people around kids and to hopefully get them to understand that, the ball does stop one day. Give yourself the best chance to be successful in life by going somewhere that's going to put you in position to be successful.
That's awesome. Let's talk a little bit about the uniqueness of the application process for West Point, because I just, it's a lot, but I think it's so darn cool what you put these kids through to get them in the door. If I'm a parent, and I've got a high school kid, and we're thinking about going to West Point, walk through what that application process looks like for our family.
Yeah, definitely. So the first part I would say is like any other place you apply to, you have to, open the portal. We send you a link. There's a portal where you submit, your transcripts. We have to get recommendations from your guidance counselors and things like that. But the unique part of it is there's a medical part with West Point where you have to go and pretty much there's some military questions, some medical questions that we ask you on the early front, but then you actually have to go in and see a doctor and pass a medical part,
Right.
which a lot of times can be a deal breaker. There's some things that unfortunately we just can't accept. So that's one part of it. And then there's also a physical part, which I actually think is pretty cool, where you have to do some testing, I would say, like pull-ups, push-ups, things like that you have to submit to your application. And our application people, they take a look at that to make sure you're doing them right, which I think is actually pretty cool. I was just talking to a young man who he just did his pull-up video, and he had to redo it because he didn't do it correctly. So those are things that are a little different than the normal place where you're just, filling out an application and waiting to hear back. No, there's a medical piece. Obviously there's a physical piece, and then there's obviously the nomination piece as well. So it's a little unique. It's taken some time to get used to, but once you do get a kid all the way through all of those things, it's pretty cool. You feel pretty accomplished. Like, man, that was a lot, but it was worth it.
I love the wake-up call you just gave to all those physical education teachers out there, all those PE teachers. I got to get that push. I got to get them doing their push-ups right, man. Got to do them getting their pull-ups done right. Right?
It is so hilarious. You'll be like, and you'll see the video, you'll be like, that looks like a pretty good pull-up to me. But then you're like, no, it's not good enough. And you're like, yeah, you gotta do it again. So
I love it.
I love it though. It's great. That's what makes West Point special.
They're going to have to figure it out when they get there. Let's try it. Let's get them figuring some things out before they get there. It makes a lot of sense to me. Talk a little bit about the nomination process, and you got to have a state senator, right?
Yes, sir.
Talk a little bit about that and how that, because for a lot of families, I would imagine that feels overwhelming. How do I even talk to my state senator? How do I even get them to look at me, So talk a little bit about that process.
Yeah, I would say that the best way for me to explain that is without rambling on for 30 minutes about it. We try to help you as much as we can.
Sure.
There's obviously the guidance counselors at your schools can help you. There's some people that we can connect you with wherever you're located at to kind of help you with that process. And then there's obviously applications that you have to fill out for that, and essays you have to fill out for that. But for us, it's really more about us just connecting you with the people that can help you in that process. It's not really the basketball, the football coaches. It's more about us connecting you with, the people down there where you live at, either your guidance counselors or the people in our admissions office here helping connect you with those people. So
that's great.
It's a unique process. Again, it's been a lot for me to learn because when I was at Lafayette and, Christopher Newport, we didn't have to touch any of that kind of stuff, but it's been cool to hear kids talk to me about, hey coach, I had to do this. And at first I was a little frustrated with it, but it actually turned out to be pretty cool that I got to talk to these people that I probably would have never talked to in my life. So I do think it's a pretty cool process.
It is. I wrote this in my book. I tell families that the college coach that's recruiting you is the best person to help you get accepted into that school because they know the admissions and financial aid process better than anybody else. They might not have all your answers, but they are connected to every single person that can give you exactly what you need to get that done. So, we're seeing families spend $5,000 to $10,000 on a college advisor and someone that helps them write their application. And I'm like, if you're getting recruited, your energy goes to your coaches. The people that want you are going to help you get in the door, because if they really want you, they're not going to let you fail. No. They're not going to let you make mistakes. So that's such good advice, well beyond West Point, coach. That's great.
Yes, sir.
I love it. Talk to me about your joy of coaching. Obviously, we talked about you had a great love of playing, and like I did. And where did coaching come into the picture for you?
That's a great question. I would say for me, it started in high school. I again, I've loved basketball since I was probably 3 years old, but the part that I enjoyed most was one, being part of a team, and then two, just being able to watch somebody, including my teammates, watching somebody that maybe they weren't very good at one thing, but then with hard work and discipline and consistency, they become good at that. And I've
Yeah.
just always enjoyed that. So it kind of started for me in high school when I was still playing, spending time with my head coach, and he was pretty tough on me. And I didn't really understand it at the time. But then as I got older in the program and I got a little bit better, I realized he was just trying to push me to another level. And once I realized that, it was like, man, like I would love to do the exact same thing one day to
Yeah.
help young men become the best version of themselves. And it just kind of started in high school, and I got to college. I knew that I wanted to coach. Obviously, I was still in my career. So at the time I was, all about hooping, but I spent a lot of time with my college coaches and asking questions and, why are we doing this? Watching film with them, recruiting. I would do a lot of the visits. They'd have me hosting kids. And, I, even when I got done playing, I don't know if I've told this, when I was done playing my senior year, I was about to graduate. My coach even sent me on the road to go recruiting with him.
That's fantastic.
And for me, that was like everything. I was like, wow, like this is totally different than anything I would have ever thought. Like the stuff that you're looking for, you know, how to get to the gym on time and how to navigate the facilities and all those things, the parents, the questions that are asked. So getting able to do that, that's kind of where it all started. And I've been fortunate that that has been my life since I've graduated college is coaching, and it's something that I don't take for granted.
Well, it shows you've got an unbelievable passion, and I'm just trying to think where my career would be right now if I had you and Don Parker doing all my recruiting and all my on the floor coaching. I might have 600-700 wins by now if I had both of you. So
Oh man,
come on, man. Um,
Dom's a good coach.
you both have that genuine love of the kids you're coaching. You genuinely have that love and passion for the game and sharing the game and teaching the game. So it just gets me juiced up, gets me excited to keep an eye on you and watch you. I want to dive into recruiting a little bit, just in general. The portal has changed the world. The NIL, the NLI is about to change. We really still don't know where that's going. Are you guys getting some direction from your AD and the NCAA about where the NLI is headed?
A little bit, but not like exactly like this is what's gonna happen. It's just
Yeah,
more like updates here and
because
there.
you
Now,
still have to sign kids, right?
yeah, we do, but like again, like our situation here at Army is so much. I don't want to say we're in another world, but like
You are, yeah,
we're kind of like the opposite end of what everybody else is going in and going on right now. So for us, it's a little different. And I can't speak for other. Well, I can. I got some buddies that are at other schools
yeah,
that they have no clue what's going on. They have no clue what's going to happen. They take it week by week.
yeah,
For us, we're kind of okay with that. We're not really in that realm as much as everybody else. Our compliance does a great job of we meet with them monthly, and they kind of just update us like, hey, this is what's going on. But
yeah,
as of now, it hasn't affected you in this space yet. So
yeah,
right now, I'd say we're a little different than everybody else. We're doing okay with that
yeah,
stuff, but it's changing. I am curious to see what happens to college athletics in the next 5 years, because every year between the portal and NIL and this revenue share, like everything is just changing so much from when I got into coaching.
yeah,
I've just tried the approach of I'm just going to take it, day by day, and whatever gets thrown my way or our staff's way, we're just going to have to adapt. And I think the coaching staffs that just realize, you know what, we're going to adapt, and not complain
Yeah.
are the coaching staffs that I think are going to be successful in this new space that we're in.
Well, you've got to kind of keep a side eye on it because you're going to be a head coach in the Big East or the ACC next year and in the next 5 years, and I'm gonna be watching you on TV, and I'm gonna get you back on, and we're gonna talk about all those things that you're having to deal with. But I'm amazed at how many people don't realize that the National Letter of Intent is not a part of the NCAA.
Yeah.
They don't really, and that's the problem. The NLI, the National Letter of Intent, it's its own organization, is shutting down. And now the NCAA is having to take a look at the whole process and going, okay, we're going to have to bring this in house somehow, right?
Yeah, it's for me again. I just don't. Not to get too much into it,
Yeah.
but I just feel like sometimes we are making way more problems than there needs to be. It should be about the kids. It should
Yes.
always be about the kids and what's best for
Yeah.
the kids. And I think it has gone away from that, which is causing all of these new things that are happening.
Yeah.
And some things are good for kids.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. There's some things that are good, but there's some things now where I'm just like, we are making this whole thing way more complicated than it needs to be. And hopefully we can get a little more structure from somebody to help everybody in this new space.
I love it. All right, here's an easier question. I put you in a room, 300 families and 300 prospects. What advice do you give them about how to go about, not necessarily just for the Army, but what advice do you give them on how to get recruited, how to talk to coaches, how to get a coach paying attention to you, how to get evaluated properly? What advice would you give those families?
Definitely. I would say the number one thing I would give any family if they are serious about being recruited is one, you need to have the right people around you. And if that's somebody that you really trust, if that's a high school coach, if that's an AAU coach, if there's a trainer, somebody that's serious about your development and getting them to, get your name out there, as like I always say. Some kids, they'll send us emails and they'll say, "Hey coach, I'm interested in playing basketball at West Point," but there's no film. There's no high school coach's number. There's no AAU coach's number. There's no nothing. And it's just like, "Hey, I'm interested in playing." And it's like, okay, well, thanks. But I need something to kind of go off of. So I tell kids all the time, if you have any film of full games, send it. Because college coaches, that's our job. Our job is to evaluate. So I tell kids all the time, get with your high school coach and have that conversation. Hey, coach, I really want to play Division 1, 2, 3, whatever. What do I need to do? What can you do for me to help me get my name out there? And maybe your high school coach can connect you with the right AAU program.
That's
or
right.
maybe it's an elite camp. I tell kids that all the time. Some people feel a certain way about elite camps. They don't want to go to them because they think it's, like a money grab. But I tell people all the time, any opportunity that you have to play in front of a college basketball coach, you should 100% take that opportunity.
Yep.
And everywhere I've been, and that's including Christopher Newport and Lafayette and now Army, kids that have come to elite camp, we have offered kids scholarships from the kids that have come to our elite camps.
Yep.
Because it's another way for us to see them. And like we talked about earlier in the summer, we have to watch so many kids that sometimes we might not get to see little Johnny play as long as we want. But if you come to our elite camp and we can watch you for 3 hours, we might say, man, little Johnny is way better than I thought he was. He's a better shooter than I saw for that 1/2 of basketball. So I just think it's about getting the right people around you and formulating a plan of getting in front of coaches. And that's might be sending them film. That might be going to elite camps.
Yep.
So anything you can do to get on a college coach's radar, I would do it. Because I think at the end of the day, we get a lot of emails, and I can promise you on our staff, we check all of them every day.
I love that. Love that. So important. That's, by the way, that's chapter 5 and 6, what you just talked about.
I love it. You got to send me that book.
I will. I'm going to send you a copy because I want your feedback on it. But that's what I want families to hear, that if you're not being assertive, if you're just sitting there going, I'm a great player, they're going to find me. How am I going to find you in a sea of 28,000 high schools and 5,000 AAU programs? How am I going to find you? Tell me that. Okay. So I love that focus. I love that you guys are checking emails. I love that you're listening to voicemails. I love that you're giving feedback. I love that you're going to the camps and paying attention to every kid that can make a difference for you. So excited. And so much work. It's so much work to do that, because if you need a power forward next year, how many power forwards are you going to look at to figure out which one you make an offer to?
A lot.
A lot.
A lot.
Hundreds, right?
We're doing it right now. We're doing it right now.
I love it. I love it. Coach, I'm so appreciative of your time. I know you guys are in the thick of the beginning of your season, and you guys are doing individuals, and you got academic stuff, and you got practices every day. Give my audience one piece of significant advice. It doesn't even have to be about basketball or recruiting, but give me one piece of significant advice that you think all families and kids need to hear.
Definitely. I would say, the one advice that I think is important, and I kind of said it earlier, and I get it from Coach O'Hanlon, who I work for at Lafayette, is how you do anything is how you do everything. So I would tell kids, like, if you are serious about being a really good basketball player, be serious about your schoolwork. Be serious about the things you do around the house. Be serious about your relationships with your friends. Be intentional with everything. And I think having that discipline as a young high school kid will only make your transition that much better when you get to college. That's right. I think it's something that I look back on now, where my mom used to always talk to me about procrastination and not making my bed, little things that I did not think were important at all. I was like, yeah, what does that have to do with, me scoring 30 or me doing this? But then as I got to college, I realized how all those little details and how I started my day, the amount of rest that I got, the level of focus that I was able to have had a lot to do with everything else around me. When I was on top of my schoolwork, I was playing better.
Yep.
When I was not on top of my schoolwork, when I was struggling and procrastinating, I was showing up late to workouts, and, I wasn't getting the time to do the extra work because I was so behind on other things. So for me, I look at it like now, and I tell my players this all the time, like, take care of your schoolwork, take care of your bodies, take care of all those little things, so that when it's time to just do basketball, you have 100% focus on that. And I think it starts in high school. That discipline, that level of focus. I really think it can change your career. And I think it can give you a little bit of an advantage when you get to college, because college coaches, it's a business and it's serious, but you got to be able to go. Like, things got to kind of go fast. And if you're dealing with things over here, things over there, you're always going to be coming from behind, if that makes sense.
And it doesn't matter if you're going to West Point or going to go to play ball at the local junior college down the street. That discipline, that work ethic, that routine is going to rise you to the top wherever you're at.
And all the best players that I've coached in college, they all were some of the most disciplined guys I've ever seen. They knew
absolutely
exactly what time they were going to work out every day. They took care of their bodies. They were seeing the trainer when they needed to see the trainer. They always were worried about how much sleep they got. And I didn't understand it. And I was like, this is why these guys are so good.
Yeah.
Because the rest of their life is in order.
Yep.
And it's something that I've taken with me as I've gotten older in coaching, is like trying to tell my guys now, man, like, discipline. That's going to be the separator from you and the other thousands of guys that are playing in college basketball.
Fantastic. Coach, you're brilliant. You're so wise. And I'm so thankful to have gotten to know you and spend some time with you. You've got a huge fan in me. I can't wait to watch Army play this year. Can't wait to follow your career. But thank you so much for just sharing your time and your experience with me today. It means a lot.
I appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity. I've heard nothing but great things about you. And anytime you want to come to a West Point basketball game, you let me know. We'll get you there.
Oh man, I am so in. I got to get to New York, I think I'm going to be more excited about coming to a practice if you guys let me come into your practice than games because I love how you guys work. So I appreciate the offer. I'm going to take you up on it at some point.
Anytime. Just let me know.
Thank you for everything, Coach. Good luck.
All right, Matt. We'll talk soon.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Significant Coaching Podcast. I'd like to thank Coach Jarren Dyson for sharing his great passion for coaching and learning with me. Just love that guy. He is a future superstar in our sport. If you're enjoying these conversations, please click that subscribe and or like buttons. If you're interested in working with me or scheduling me to speak at your school or organization, you can schedule a free strategy session at coachmattrogers.com. Hey, thanks for listening. Have a significant week. Goodbye until next time.